Io adesso cedo la parola a Davide Casaleggio, in questo momento di colloquio che non vedo l'ora di sentire. Prego.
Grazie. Il prossimo ospite di questo Zoom 06, che è Jeremy Rifkin, adesso mi metto in modo che si possa, che è collegato adesso da Washington, e con lui volevo parlare di questa rivoluzione energetica. Lui conoscerete sicuramente Jeremy Rifkin, quindi non ha bisogno di introduzioni, ma lui è un economista e scrittore proprio di questo tema, del tema della rivoluzione verde, rivoluzione all'idrogeno. Hi Jeremy, how are you today?
Good morning. Nice to be with you. Can you hear me okay?
So, parlerò in inglese per Jeremy. I will be speaking English. So, Jeremy, what is happening today? We seeing this conflict in Ucraina that is changing the way we think about gas. We here in Italy, we're actually talking about coal in the last few weeks. I've heard government talking about closing gas and opening up coal plants to get energy. Is this the right direction?
It's totally contrary to the moment at hand. Let me explain. This invasion of Ukraine by Russia is the last fossil fuel war in history. This is an inflection point. Now, of course, Russia went into Ukraine in order to be able to increase its territorial influence, moving closer and closer into the European continent. But the reaction by NATO, the European Union, the United States, was to commit massive sanctions in order to stop using Russian oil, coal, and natural gas. Remember, Russia is the third major provider of fossil fuels in the world. So these sanctions have had tremendous results. Germany announced that it was abandoning the new gas pipeline that's been in operation, been moving forward for the last few years. And so now we have a situation where this is a turning point in history. We are moving from geopolitics of fossil fuels to biosphere politics based on renewable energy. This is a really critical turning point. So the key here is we now have to massively move out of the remaining use of fossil fuels in Europe, the United States, and around the world. And we have to do it quickly. This is an emergency, not only in terms of security, but also in terms of making the leap forward to a new regime in history. You know, we fought many wars for fossil fuels. I don't have to remind Europe. Germany and France and Europe in World War II fought over fossil fuels in the Ruhr Valley, coal. So this is the last, hopefully the last venture, if you will. What I would say is this, any government leader that's saying that we now have to rely more on natural gas because of what's happening in Ukraine is doing the bidding of the fossil fuel companies. The fact is that solar and wind energy is now the cheapest energy in the world and has been for 3 years. Much cheaper than nuclear, much cheaper than oil, much cheaper than coal, and now cheaper than natural gas. And the price of solar and wind are plunging, and they're going to be more cheaper and cheaper in the years to come. So why would we engage in new developments for natural gas and pipelines and coal and nuclear when the market is saying that solar and wind are the cheapest energies in the world? So what I would suggest for Italy, we have been hearing in Italy that the government is now saying we need to rely more in the short run on natural gas and fossil fuels. That is the wrong move. Now what we need to do is across Italy, we need to put solar and wind in every single region and pack Italy with the new energies of a biosphere world. Italy is the Saudi Arabia of sun and wind. You are a peninsula. You have enough sun and wind now, not only to generate all of the energy you need for Italy, but also to import it on time zones across Europe and the Mediterranean. So I worry when I hear the government say that we now have to rely in the short run on more and more natural gas. We should take the gas pipelines and we should recondition those pipelines overnight for green hydrogen, for solar and wind hydrogen, so that we can provide the energy and heat for our industries. And then we should move into a third industrial revolution. I've been, as you know, working with the European Union for 22 years on this, and we have announced our plan under the van der Leyen Commission. It's very clear. It's called Third Industrial Revolution. That's the official term in the European Commission. And it has two parts: Digital Europe, Green Deal. Digital Europe is the infrastructure, and Green Deal is the climate paradigm shift into a zero emission society. We're ready to go, but I'm a little bit concerned that the government of Italy has submitted two plans to the European Commission for making the transition, and both include staying in fossil fuels. And this was before the war in Ukraine. This makes no sense. And I would also point out that Italy's getting the most money from the European Commission of all the 27 nation states in the EU. And the reason is it was hoped that Italy would lead the southern countries and lead European Union into this great transition. So when Italy comes back with proposals that involve more fossil fuel use and get turned down by the European Commission, I think it's time now for the Italian public to react. That means the trade unions, the cooperatives, Italian industry, the civil society, the regions, the mayors of Italy have to step up now and say it's time to make this paradigm shift. This is a moment that will determine our future. If we do not make this massive shift quickly into renewable energies and a third industrial revolution and a digital infrastructure, we will lose precious time, and we will move quickly to the what the United Nations is calling the inflection point, where the temperature of the planet will go over 1.5 degrees Celsius. And when that happens, we're in a runaway extinction event and with no return into a world that we cannot even understand at all. So the young people were out on the streets in Italy. I think it was a week or two ago, the Friday for Future. Thousands of young people are saying, this is on our watch. We want a future. We need Italy to act.
So what are the infrastructures that you think necessary to do this switch? You often talk about the Internet of Energy, a new way of thinking of energy, having it distributed with not centralized. Before we were talking about this new approach of dealing with energy. So how should we be investing this money?
Well, it's very interesting anthropologically. There's been about 7 or 8 major economic paradigm shifts in all of human history. They're very interesting because each one of them has a common denominator. And that is, in a moment of time across a society, 3 technology revolutions come together and converge to change the entire way we organize our social life, our economic life, and our political life. What are those 3 technology revolutions? Number 1, new communication revolutions. Number 2, new energy revolutions. Number 3, new logistics and mobility revolutions. So when new communication technologies converge with new sources of energy, new modes of mobility and logistics, it fundamentally changes the way a society organizes its communication, its power, and its ability to move society. These infrastructure shifts also change our economic models, our forms of governance, our living habitats, our narratives and worldviews. Let me give you 2 quick examples. Britain, first industrial revolution, 19th century. The new communication revolution was steam-powered printing and the telegraph to annihilate time and space and bring people together. That converged with a new source of energy in Britain, coal. They harvested this coal with a steam engine. Then they put the steam engine on rails for transportation and logistics. And that gave us a completely new infrastructure that took us to capitalism, national markets, and the rest of history. In the United States, the second industrial revolution of the 20th century, the communication was the telephone, a huge deal in history, like the internet today. Later, radio and television. Those communication revolutions in America converged with a new source of energy, oil, cheap Texas oil. Then Henry Ford put everybody in the internal combustion engine for transport. First road, then we went to rail and inland water, ocean and air traffic. That second industrial revolution took us to globalization and international mediating institutions like the OECD, the World Bank, et cetera. That second industrial revolution is now in sunset. We're moving to a third industrial revolution, digital Europe, Green Deal. We have the internet. That's a great communication revolution. We have 4.5 billion people connected, and they have in the palm of their hands smartphones that give them more computing power than send our astronauts to the moon. And then that's communication revolution is now converging with a new energy revolution. And that is a digitized electricity internet that's starting to emerge across Europe and China and here in America. Millions of people are producing their own solar and wind electricity in their homes, in their neighborhoods, in their businesses, in their communities. And whatever electricity they don't need, they're beginning to share it on an increasingly digitized electricity internet across nations and soon across oceans and continents and time zones. And they're using the same big data and analytics to share electricity across the world that we use to share news, knowledge, and entertainment on the communication internet. Now, the two internets are converging with the third internet, a digitized mobility and logistics internet made up of electric and fuel cell transportation, powered by solar and wind from the electricity internet. And then those vehicles were going to be autonomous, no drivers, road, rail, water, and air. And they'll be using the same data and analytics to manage autonomous transport that we use to manage news, knowledge, and entertainment on the communication internet, and to share our solar and wind electricity across the world on an electricity internet. Finally, these three internets that converge, communication, energy, mobility, they ride on top of the Internet of Things. We're placing sensors across the entire world in the environment, in the agricultural fields, in smart homes and smart vehicles, and they're giving us data. It's like a giant nervous system for the planet. And on top of that nervous system is Galileo GPS. The nervous system is the sensors. And in this new world, every building will be climate resistant, will be retrofitted. We'll have edge data centers so people can share their data in a distributed way across businesses and not rely on giant global corporations to do all the heavy lifting. Every building will be a energy producer with solar and small wind. Every building will be a charging station for the EVs and batteries for storage. So essentially, the buildings itself will be part of this infrastructure. It's distributed. You know, in the first and second industrial revolution, big companies owned all of the business opportunities because it was so expensive and energy is only found in a few places, uranium, coal, and gas. But the sun and the wind is everywhere. So what we're beginning to see is a shift from geopolitics and fossil fuel wars to biosphere politics and shared energy. In this new era, hundreds of millions and soon billions of people are going to be producing their own sun and wind. They're going to be moving on their autonomous transport. They're going to be sharing data on these edge data centers with SMEs, small and medium-sized businesses. So the biosphere era forces sharing because the sun and the wind move across time zones. So if you have a lot of sun and wind during the day, you can share it with other countries and other time zones that are at night. At nighttime, when the wind is blowing in other parts of the world, they can store the electricity and share it with those that are at peak hour during the daytime. This is a distributed, if you will, economic and social revolution. And it will take us from geopolitics to biosphere politics. This is where we have to go. And Italy needs to step forward as it did at the beginning of the European Union when Spinelli laid out the vision for this. And it now has to immediately in the next few years, with Ukraine as our inflection point, moving this revolution forward. I don't want to hear anything more in Italy about we have to rely on natural gas, coal, and oil. That's absurd. when solar and wind are much cheaper.
Yeah, I think I'm obviously on your page on this. One of the objections they people often have is, okay, you can put your solar panel on your roof, and maybe you can have your home electricity dealt with. But what happens when you have to do some steel? What happens when you have to have a big industrial plant working on electricity? Can you solve that problem with renewable energy?
We can, and this is where hydrogen comes in. As you know, when Romano Prodi was president of the European Commission back 20 years ago, he and I got together and we put together a massive plan that he announced, billions of euros for green hydrogen. Now, let me explain what green hydrogen is. Everyone says they want to move to hydrogen as a way to move a lot of heat so that we can maintain our factories and our industries, et cetera. Well, there's gray hydrogen. You can get hydrogen from coal. There's blue hydrogen. You can get hydrogen from natural gas. Then there's green hydrogen. You get it from the sun and the wind. That's the one we have to pick. So we've got gas pipelines now all over Europe and all over the world, right? They're stranded assets. I don't know if the Italian public fully realizes this, but trillions and trillions of euros have exited the fossil fuel industry because solar and wind are cheaper. And they know they can't amortize out their coal, oil, gas, and nuclear power plants. Some 11 trillion euros have left the fossil fuel industry. These companies aren't even in the Standard & Poor's anymore, Exxon, et cetera. The largest solar company is now bigger than Exxon. So what's happening is the pension funds, the insurance industry, the banks, they're all saying we have trillions of euros here to invest, and we can invest in this third industrial revolution infrastructure. We can take the gas pipelines, which are standard asset, and we can put hydrogen that's green through those pipelines. Here's how it works. You generate electricity with the sun and the wind. Then the electricity you generate, you put it in water. And of course, just like high school chemistry, when you put the electricity in water, the hydrogen goes to one part of the tank, the oxygen goes to the other. Then you take that hydrogen and you move it through the pipelines so that you can maintain your cement factories if you need to, and your steel factories, et cetera. That can be done right now today, right now. With those old gas pipelines, we can save them. And this will be a big boom for the fossil fuel industry that has to make that transition from stranded assets to the new era that we're talking about.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for being with us today. It was great to hear from your voice the fact that we can actually have a renewable energy Italy based. And I was talking with you the other day, talking about Sardinia. That is, I think, the first example of how we could start off with a renewable Italy. But I think this is obviously the direction. There's no more excuses, nor economic, nor political excuses to go in the direction of renewable Italy.
May I make one more point?
Of course.
I think what needs to happen now is, and I hope they're listening in, the mayors of all of your cities, all of the regions of Italy, the cooperatives, the trade unions, the industry associations, you need now to begin in each region of Italy to move a roadmap forward with a plan for your region that's in line with Digital Europe and Green Deal and the infrastructure I laid out. And you need to put the pressure on the national government now to move quickly. It's not just the young people on the streets, it's local businesses, it's the cooperatives, it's the labor unions, it's the workers of Italy deserve this new chance, an opportunity to move to a post-geopolitical world, to a biosphere world for our kids and future generations and for the rest of the species we live with. So I'm hoping that Italy will take the lead here in Europe, and any future proposals coming from the national government, either for Italy or to the EU, they really need to be in line with the Green Deal and Digital Europe. And you should begin this tomorrow morning. Italy should be leading Europe.
Thank you, Jeremy Rifkin. Thank you for being with us. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy.